we are going to set Kenyans free because we are going to speak the truth. Now, public debt has been a major concern. Major concern. And what drove me to this position is that I just could not understand how we have so much debt on our debt book. The debt book today is showing that we owe 8.4 trillion. Central bank figures. When Kibaki left his last budget, the debt we had at June 2014, when he did the last budget of 2013, was 2.3 trillion. The amount of Kenyans that were poor at that time, when Kibaki left, was 38%. At 2.3 trillion debt. Today, at 8.4 trillion debt, we have a 63% poverty rate. In other words, 63% of our Kenyans, 63 out of every 100 cannot find food every day to eat. It doesn't make sense. So, I commissioned an investigation, what you call a forensic investigation into our public debt. And I commissioned this late last year. And this is a summary of that investigation. It's important to understand that the investigation was primarily only on government published documents. The budget and CPK accounts. So we have not gone outside government documents at all. We have just looked at what they have published and we have investigated forensically the accounts as they have published them. And I got a very good man who headed a very formidable team. And I want you to introduce him. I want to introduce him to you. He's called Bernard. Please stand up, Bernard. Thank you for my big class. He headed a team, amongst others, Domo and Naina, please stand up, Domo, who handled the legal aspect of that investigation. But we had a group, we had a team, they had a very good team. And from late last year, they gave me their interim report in about February. For those who don't know Bernard, because many of you don't know him, Bernard has worked as an internal auditor for government for the last 40 years. He, in fact, is the one behind the investigations of Apia House, if you know the Apia House investigations. He was the internal auditor behind those investigations. So he knows government accounting. And he had a very good team of similar people who were ex-government workers. So we looked at government books. And when they first gave me their report in February, I was shocked. By the time they came back again in March, I was even more overwhelmed. And I hope that I'm able to show you in the simplest of forms, all viewers of this broadcast, in the simplest of forms. So, present here, please also take it like you're in a classroom. I'm going to try and be a bit of a teacher here, because many people think budget, money, debt, big words are used and very difficult to follow. It's a very simple process. After all, it's our money as Kenyans. So this is a very simple process. Very simple. It should be. So I will try and be as simple as possible. And in that simplicity, if there's anything I miss out, I'm going to give you a minute to ask me any question. Please don't be afraid of asking any question. However simple it may seem to you, it isn't. You can imagine when I at home, I also want you to understand. So any question, please, put forward. Let me start. Let me show you the audit. This audit took about 6 to 7 months. So we have summarized it in a simple way as we could, hoping that everyone can follow. So these are the key findings of the forensic investigation on our total public debt, but we focused primarily on the 8 years of the Jubilee government. In other words, from Kibaki's 2.3 trillion to the current 8.4. So we analyzed the debt during the period of this outgoing regime of Jubilee. Now, as I stated earlier, when Mwai Kibaki left power, 2013-2014, you had a poverty level of 38%. 38 of every 100 Kenyans did not have food every night in their stomach. And you had a debt of 2.4 trillion. These are government records. This is CBK accounting. There's nothing we have created here. This regime is at its dawn. And at its dawn, the CBK record as of April 2022, the statements that they publish monthly, are showing a debt of 8.4 trillion outstanding, and at 63%, we are at 63%. This is a Kipra report just before budget, saying that we are at 63% poverty rate. 63 of 100 Kenyans are sleeping hungry almost every night. Now, this conversation, let me add, the president himself. Sorry. You want me to use the podium? Okay. The president himself introduced this conversation in the last Madaraka Day. Please hear him.
And on this, I want to pose the natural question. How much is too much borrowing? When does borrowing become too much and unbearable to a nation? The only time debt is a burden to a nation is if a nation is led by looters.
Now, he posed a national question on the public debt. So we are discussing the public debt. He invited us into this discussion, and we are articulating it. Now, there are two things he said. That to him, national debt is good unless it is being looted. And we are following that conversation. He further stated something else in the next clip, which I think is important you note, because what he states in the next clip is the law of this country. This was in an interview in Mombasa about 3 years ago. I think the media were having a round table with him at State House. And this is what he said about debt.
I will borrow. Listen. I will continue to borrow. Yeah? Not to consume. To develop. No. To develop. Okay. Not to consume. To develop. God, don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, are we clear? Are we clear? I will continue to borrow for development, not for consumption. I want you to note those two lines very, very clearly. Now, what is public debt? Public debt is anchored in our Constitution, Article 214. And it is very clear. We are going to give you some handouts that express this. Okay? There are two aspects of public debt. The first is that it is anchored in the budget. In the budget. And that budget is here. The budget is where all our expenses, all our expenditure, all our revenue, all our debt is carried. And the law is very clear. The Constitution, as I had shown earlier, in Articles 206, 214, and 2020, anchor the consolidated fund, the national debt, and the budget. All monies are only in the budget. You cannot do anything outside the budget with with monies of a government. It is further anchored in two ways, our borrowings. In the Public Finance Management Act, it states two things. One, that the national government can only borrow, the national government borrowing shall be used only for financing development expenditure and not recurrent expenditure. That is in our law. 15.2 of that section, 2012, is very clear. It also says the national government may borrow money only for the budget as approved by Parliament and the allocation of loans as approved by Parliament. Section 53. So let us be very clear. You cannot expend or borrow or do anything without the law. So we have said the debt is anchored in the national budget. You heard the president himself say you can only borrow for development. For development. Now, the budget is in two sections. Two sections. They are called appropriations. And there are two appropriations. There's appropriation development and there's appropriation recurrent. In appropriations development, all the projects the government is going to undertake, it wants to build a superhighway, it wants to build STR, it wants to build a dam, it wants to dig boreholes. It is articulated in development. In the Development Appropriations Budget Act, this is what the Minister of Finance presents to Parliament and is passed as an act of Parliament. Then you have recurrent expenditure of the national government. That is Recurrent Appropriations Act, where payment of wages are put, payment of the repayment of our loans. All our loan repayments are put in the Recurrent Appropriations Act. So the budget has two acts that are tabled to Parliament for approval as per the law. Are we together? Are we all together? Now, so our loans are here in development. There are no loans in recurrent. Now, how does the budget become law? The budget starts in ministries. All the ministries formulate their expenditures, development and recurrent. They pass them to the National Treasury, which become an appropriation bill. From here, before they go to Parliament, Mwananchi, Wanjiko, you and I participate. So that what is passed by Parliament, we participate. So both books, recurrent and development, we have participated. Wanjiko, that is the Constitution. Mora, that is the Constitution. We participate. From there, the bills, as you have seen sometimes on television, go for what is called presidential assent. That is this stage here. The president signs the bills, making them law. Both recurrent and development appropriation acts are separate acts that are law. It is from there that the president further does one other step, and this was brought by the new constitution, that in order to activate the movement of cash, any expenditure, any borrowings, the president personally signs presidential warrants. Those presidential warrants are anchored in Public Finance Regulations 215, Regulation 21. They're all here. This is a consequence of the new constitution, which wanted to hold the president liable for any expenditure that is made on behalf of the national government. In other words, on behalf of Mwananchi. It is then goes into a treasury wallet and cash starts flowing. Are we together? Are we together? So, our forensic investigation analyzed the 8 years of the outgoing regime. the debt of the last 8 years of the current regime. Now, as I said, the Development Appropriations Act is tabled to Parliament and is public knowledge. These are all public figures. These have been tabled and passed by Parliament, and this is what WANJIGI, through public participation in all these years, knows. So, column 1, let me call it 1 here, has the financial years recorded right up to 2022 budget. This is the appropriations development. The second column is the approved development budget expenditure estimates. In other words, this is where you put the projects. So these are the projects the Jubilee government sought to implement over the last 8 years. In the first term, they had project estimated sizes of 2.6 trillion. That is what they sought to achieve. In the second term, they sought to achieve projects of 2.683 trillion. A total of 5.3 trillion. Are we together? These are the projects they sought funding. Then they asked Parliament for approval of funding, because the funding is done this way. How much is going to come from our tax, and how much is going to come from debt? So our taxes were to pay 3.3 trillion to support the projects of 5.3. 3.3 trillion from our taxes to support projects of 5.3. Then we were to borrow 2 trillion. I must express here that all these borrowings are external borrowings of 2 trillion. So WANJIGI approved the borrowings of 2 trillion over the last 8 years. Are we on the same page? That is the only place our debt in the appropriations over the last 8 years has been put. It is 2 trillion shillings. That is the authorized debt. This is a sample of the Appropriations Act development. So it shows you the ministry where the project is going. It shows you the estimate of the cost of the project. This is revenue from taxation. Then it's appropriation in aid. And you have what is called the debt, the loans and grants. They're all here. So this is the column which has shown the funding. The funding was all external. It goes on to a further schedule where the actual source of the external funding is listed. So let's say we have Kitui Water Project to be done by the Ministry of Water. 100 million. 50 million is to come from our taxes. 50 million is to come from debt. That borrowing is even shown to the extent that 50 million debt is going to come from government of Japan or government of India or Exim Bank somewhere. So when the budget is presented and approved, the funding is already locked. It's not something they go and canvass after. It is already locked. Where do we go to find out what is our public debt? Article 2061 of the Constitution, which we mentioned earlier, is clear on the consolidated fund. That is where all our public money goes. Raised, received, taxes, loans, everything. Because it is from there that the Treasury has opened what you call a National Exchequer account. National Exchequer account, which hosts the consolidated fund. And that National Exchequer account is opened in the CBK. So just like your bank, every month it gives you a statement, Barclays Bank, KCB, National Bank, Cooperative Bank. They give you a statement, Equity Bank, they give you a statement every month of your state of affairs in your account. The same is done for government by CBK. CBK just reports the government account. It doesn't do anything else. The exchequer account is just to report what government activity is in that account. CBK has no other role in the exchequer account. So, the exchequer account, the national exchequer account, shows the following over the last 8 years. This is the debt per year that the Jubilee government has shown in central bank it has taken. So in the first term, it took 2.6 trillion. In the second term, it took 3.4 trillion, ending now. Debt. So central bank is showing that the Jubilee years have taken a cumulative 6.1 trillion debt. Are we clear? That is column 1. Column 2 is showing what public debts were authorized in the Appropriations Act. Remember, you can only borrow for development, and in the Development Appropriation Act, all the approvals are there. WANJIGI has participated, Parliament has participated, the President has signed the warrant, and it is very clear. In the first term, 969 billion. In the second term, 2.031 trillion. And the approvals, as we had shown earlier, were 2 trillion. That is the only debt we know approved by Parliament to be taken. So we have a difference of 4 trillion shillings. I want to remind everybody that this is just a clear analysis of their own books, books published by the government of Kenya. This is CBK published website statements that they do every month. So there is a variance here. This money has nobody's approval. It has no WANJIGI's approval, it has no constitutional approval, nothing. No parliamentary approval, nothing. 4 trillion. 2 times what is approved of 2 trillion. The next table, we are saying, were all publicized CBK external debts linked to authorized budgeted projects. All publicized CBK external debt linked to authorized public budgeted projects. I think you remember I said that all the borrowings of 2 trillion approved in the appropriations development over the last 8 years was all external debt. No domestic borrowing, all external debt. So the external debt as shown over the 8 years taken on our name as Kenyans is a total of 3.8 trillion shillings. First term 1.4, second term 2.3. As we said earlier, the approved, what is approved for borrowing is 2 trillion. So we have an authorized external debt of 1.8 trillion. We don't know who owes this money because we didn't approve it here. So what is this for? We are saying that this money did not go to any project in Kenya. And if it did, they have not shown us where. External. Are we together? Are we all together? If I'm going too fast, please tell me. Were domestic debts authorized under the Appropriation Act? Now, what we found, and we'll show this in a little while, is that the CBK also publishes domestic and external debts. So, over the period, we have taken a total domestic debt from 2014 to the total now to 2022 of 2.9 trillion. 1.1 trillion in the first term, 1.7 in the second term. Remember, public debt was all external in the appropriations. 2 trillion, nothing to do with this. So there are no approvals for domestic borrowing. Remember, borrowing can only go to development. So this money you hear, we keep borrowing every so often in terms of bonds and everything else, has funded no project on the books that have been published by the government. No project. So we don't know what this is for. Treasury bonds, CGU, I don't know what bonds, domestic borrowing, we have no idea what this is for. Is the CBK publicized debt of 8.47 trillion factual? So we did some simple accounting here. Very simple accounting. In the first column, you see here the recurrent expenditure authorized by the Appropriation Act for repayment of public debt. Remember the budget, you have development appropriation and you have recurrent appropriation. In that recurrent appropriation is where public debt repayments are. So how much have we as WANJIGI paid to debt? We have paid over these years. In the first term, 1.9 trillion has gone to debt payments, repayments. In the second term, look at this, 3.7 trillion from our taxes has gone to repay debt. We have paid a total debt repayment of 5.6 trillion. 5.6. That is how much has been raised from WANJIGI to repay loans. I take you back to the appropriations development, where his development expenditure, the development expenditure of Jubilee is categorized. Remember, they said they wanted to borrow for projects costing 5.3 trillion. I want you to see that Kenyans have paid 5.6. In other words, we have a credit balance. In other words, we didn't even need to borrow. We can finance all our projects without borrowing anything from anybody. Now, we'll go as per CBK statements. CBK statement says 6.1 is what has been borrowed over the last 8 years. I'm not even talking here about what is authorized, what is not authorized. I'm putting them all together. What is authorized is 2. What is not authorized, you saw, is 4.1. It is all here in 6.1. So you take our repayments of 5.6. You take what central bank is saying has been taken over the years, 6.1. You have then a difference of 474. So over the last 8 years, what we should be showing the statements as we owe is 474 billion. You add WANJIGI's debt of 2.3. The actual statement should read a balance of 2.8 trillion. Why does it read 8.4? It is acting as though we have not paid anything. That, even with the illegal expenditure, unauthorized here, take it all, add Mwai Kibaki's, and take our repayments. This is what it should be showing we owe the world. 2.8 trillion. But we are told we owe 8.4. I remind you again, this is government record. We have not created anything here. There's no creative accounting. We have not created any new documents. This is an investigation into their own records that they have made public. We have not had to go and find them anywhere. They've made them public as per the law. Are we on the same page? Were tax revenue sufficient to finance and repay authorized debt? Yes. Recurrent expenditure is here, 5.6. That is what the taxes have repaid in debt. Our taxes, the authorized expenditure, as per the law, what Wanjiko knows, we have passed is 2 trillion. 2 trillion to debt. Which means that we have a credit over the 8 years of 3.6. Are we following each other? Some of these numbers can be quite bewildering. You add Mwai Kibaki's debt of 2.3, then really, if we are talking about the law, talking about debt that we know has gone to published development projects, we as Kenyans owe nobody any money. In fact, Kenyans are owed by the world, by debtors, 1.2 trillion shillings. That is what we are saying today. We have no debt. We are owed 1.2 trillion shillings. Now, I want to take you back to this slide because I want Mwananchi to understand what this amount can do to their lives. What this trillion, which is unauthorized, which has gone to no project, can do to their lives. 4 trillion, if you are to put it to development, I think it is the good outgoing governor of Makueni who built a Makueni level 5 hospital for 135 million shillings. Ultra modern, fully equipped, level 5 hospital in Makueni for 135 million shillings. It means you can build 30,355 of those hospitals. To break it down, it means that every ward in this country will have 20 of those level 5 hospitals in each ward. 20. 20. That is what this money does. If you divide this money, into food, and you say every household needs a minimum of 500 shillings per day, you feed 10 million families, 10 million people, 10 million Kenyans for 2.5 years. $2.8 years, actually. Now, this is CBK accounting again. And here, we are showing the debt repayments. They categorize them. Debt repayment of our 5.6. Domestic, we have a repayment of principal amount domestic debt, what we borrow from the local market, 1.83 trillion. And interest has also been paid of 2.1 trillion to the banks. I don't know why nobody is sounding shocked. Aren't you asking yourselves why they don't want you to borrow? They don't come to ask you to borrow anything. They're making enough money here. That is 3.9 trillion repayments of our taxes, from our taxes, has gone to domestic banks, domestic borrowing. The external 1 trillion repayment for principal, 694, 1.7 trillion has gone to external repayments. So Kenyans work very hard. We collect taxes. The fallacy that government does not collect taxes is not true. We pay our taxes, they collect taxes. We repay to the extent of 5.6 trillion. And we are told by the same government in this budget of 2021-2022 that 65% of their revenue, of their collection, is going to this. That it is such a big burden. 65% is going to do this, is going to pay this. Now, here are the heists. We are calling this a heist of greatest magnitude. Of the greatest magnitude you can imagine. The greatest magnitude you can imagine. And this heist needs a process. That process, I want you to see the ukora ambayo imefanyika hapa. Ukora of the highest order. The Constitution, Article 206, is very clear, especially Article 201. 1. There is established the consolidated fund in which shall be paid all money, all, operative word, money raised or received by or on behalf of the national government, except money that A, is reasonably excluded from the fund by an act of parliament and payable into another public fund established for a specific purpose. I'll give you an example here. Petroleum Development Fund. Established by parliament, can go directly to that fund. Or 2, may, under the act of parliament, be retained by a state organ that received it for the purposes of defraying the costs of a state organ. If a ministry sells a car, what does it do with those proceeds? It can use it for their own budget without passing through the consolidated fund. Are we clear? All right. Now, in line with 2010 Constitution, the Public Finance Management Act, which governs this aspect of the Constitution, Section 57 relates to that, where it said in 2012, the Cabinet Secretary shall ensure, this is how it reads, the Cabinet Secretary shall ensure that the proceeds of any loan raised under the Act are paid into the consolidated fund or into any other public fund established by the national government or any of its entities as Cabinet Secretary may determine in accordance with the regulations approved by Parliament. That corresponds with this. Are we following each other? Perfect. Sasa ukora unaingia. In 2014, they decided to amend this section. Don't know for what reason. But it passed Parliament. But look at what they do. They scrap this whole section, 57, and replace it with the following. The Cabinet Secretary shall ensure that the proceeds of any loan raised are A, so they introduce A, paid into the consolidated fund. So now they try and introduce like an A and B here. Consolidated fund, that's in line with this up here. This one says shall be, must. B, paid into any other public fund established in the national government. That is like the Petroleum Development Fund, I've explained here. Then they introduced two amendments. These are amendments you're making that are contrary to the Constitution, appearing as though they are an extension of the Constitution. So that if you read it, you think, this is as per this, it goes on. The Constitution Act, they're two different things. So they introduce C and D. C says, disburse directly to the suppliers, where the loan is a government-to-government loan and is raised for the purpose of financing goods and services provided by a supplier outside Kenya. This was done during the Jubilee term, please note, 2014. So now you're saying directly to a supplier. All you need to do is have a loan termed government to government. It goes to a supplier. Does not go to consolidated fund. Does not go to the exchequer account. Does not go through CBK. But the Constitution is very clear. All money raised must go to the consolidated fund. Must go to CBK. And D, this is even more ridiculous. In the case of an external loan or external government security, applied in part to pay at closing pre-negotiated expenses associated solely and exhaustively with the borrowing, including but not limited to the fees, commissions, expenses, lenders, financial arrangers, managers, book runners, fiscal agents, trustees, paying agents, exchange, aid, information, agents, syndicated agents, counsel, clearing systems, listing agents, stock exchanges, rating agencies, expenses, and other similar nature arising. I don't know what similar nature means in law. This is so amorphous, arising from external loan or external government security. These two were introduced so that you avoid going through the exchequer account, going through what the Constitution has clearly said you must do. Go through the consolidated fund where WANJIGI has voted where the money should go. This was introduced. They say the cornerstone of fraud is concealment. The cornerstone of fraud is concealment. Key findings. We are saying categorically here, and when I say we, I want you to understand that this is the first ever forensic investigation into the public debt. We are saying there is no outstanding public debt of 8.47 trillion as published by CBK. It is fake, it is dishonest. We are saying that there is a concealment of fraud of 9.7 trillion shillings. 9.7 trillion. We are adding the debt plus what you remember we calculated as a credit to our account. We should be having a credit balance of 1.2 trillion. This is what has been defrauded from Kenyans, and that is why recently you saw the debt ceiling being risen to 10 trillion. This is a 10 trillion shilling heist. 10 trillion shilling heist. We are saying the amendment, the unconstitutional amendment, unconstitutional amendment of Constitution Articles 206(1) by illegally amending the Public Finance Management Act to facilitate and enable fraud is unconstitutional, ultra-vires, and should be expunged immediately. We are saying in our findings that the domestic debt borrowed by a lot of our banks here, some of which you know who are the owners. You know, it's not a secret. Domestic debt borrowed without authority and appropriation by Parliament. There are no projects to those domestic debt, and that it is fake domestic debt. Fake domestic debt. And in light of that, anybody who has bought it, understand there is something called buyer beware. You should have known the law. That is a ticket that will not be paid by Kenya anymore. We are saying we are stopping debt repayments henceforth. We are demanding no further borrowing. We are demanding the recovery of all illegal debt repayments. And we are asking for the expansion of any unconstitutional laws, specifically the one in the Public Service Management Act. That is the conclusion of my report. I have today announced of public funds. I have today announced the biggest heist of public funds. I want to concur with the President of the Republic of Kenya when he was very categoric that 2 billion shillings is looted every day. 2 billion shillings, if you calculate it, comes to a total of 5.8 billion over the last 8 years. 5.8 trillion over the last 8 years. That is close to the repayments we have made to date of 5.6. So he knows where the heist is. We have announced today that Kenyans are debt-free and actually have a credit. That the pain that you're living is unjustified. What has happened over the last 8 years, is that we are creating a poverty in our country. We are making poor people. We have moved from 38 to 63. That gap of 30 is a creation of poor people because of fake debt. 30%. That is what has happened. And if they believe what we are saying is not correct, I challenge them to answer to any of this, because these are their figures. These are their figures. It is all a heist. And I'd like to see the gentlemen at the back and ladies. Come here, please. Stand here. The total number of people you're seeing here, total number that you're seeing here, are the total number of people in the heist, persons of interest, and we shall in part 2, because today is part 1, address this heist and the persons of interest. Asanteni sana. Thank you. Now, I'm opening the floor to any questions anybody may have. We are distributing some pamphlets that summarize what we have put here. But I am open to any question, any clarification anybody may have, because I think it's important to understand in international terms what we are saying is that close to $100 billion has been taken from Kenyans. Any questions? Yes, Gerald.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm glad to be part of this forum.
Thank you, Gerald.
I have three questions. One, President Uhuru Kenyatta, while taking power, he estimated the cost of this project to 5.3 trillion.
Yes.
For all of us.
Yes.
Now, in your presentation, you claimed that we've paid a total of 5.62 trillion in debt.
Correct.
One, does that mean then that we have financed our own budget without any borrowing?
That is correct.
All right. Secondly, as an owner of government bonds, if these borrowings are unpractical backing, how safe is my investment in terms of bonding? And three, are banks then, out of this country, are they part of the guys you just mentioned here, the banks that are selling government bonds?
Thank you very much. Rita, can I have this pen and paper? Now, let me start with the first one. You are absolutely correct. We could have financed from our own revenue all the development projects the Jubilee government has brought out over the last 8 years. We did not need to borrow. We, in fact, over-financed them. Two, you are right. Where's Rita? Two, your second question was on
government bonds. Because
yes,
we have,
yes,
Kenyans are watching
on domestic bonds.
Yes, and they are worried about their investment in government bonds.
Yes. Now, let me say this. I mentioned earlier, buyer beware. If you are loaning the government of Kenya any money, you must understand the law, the Constitution and the law. The Constitution says you can only borrow for development. Those development projects and its borrowing maximums, estimates, are put in the national budget and its purpose articulated in the national budget. No domestic borrowing has gone towards development. So that is an odious debt. You are holding paper that this government should not be paying. That domestic debt should not be paid unless they can show us where they anchored it in law. This is part of the 4 trillion unauthorized. Unauthorized. So if they are going to come and show us where they have taken the money, domestic, and that it is anchored in the law, which we doubt they are going to show us. It means this, that 4 trillion is the parliament, more than double, 2 times. 4 trillion approved by parliament is 2. Has been taken outside of the law. Who has such powers to do that? CBK has no powers. The president has no powers. Who has those powers? And what did that money go for? It did not finance development. If it went to somebody's pocket, we cannot be made to pay it. So it's an odious debt. We shall not pay it. Kenyans should not pay it, will not pay it. That is as clear as it is.
So does that mean that Kenyans also will not be paid for their bonds they are projecting?
They should hold the instrument under which they took that debt accountable. This is a crisis. What I'm presenting here is actually a crisis that we must address, no matter how painful. It is a crisis. Because people seem to have been operating outside of the law. And if they're operating outside of the law, then, I mean, what are they doing? What are they doing? Taking the money to fund themselves. What can we do? Nothing. We have a country of laws. You're operating outside the law. Anything outside the law cannot be put as a burden to us. It cannot. It cannot be put as a burden to WANJIGI. So it is a crisis. Yes.
And lastly, the banks. Does that mean that the banks themselves, government bonds, are part of the haste that you just...
I don't want to infer any of that. Maybe they are ignorant. Maybe they are unclear. Maybe they are just invited to take bonds and they are ignorant. But that is why I go back to buyer beware. Buyer beware. They have legal departments in each of those banks who should have read the law, because those borrowings are not within the law. Yes, David.
Thanks, David from Quebec. I have a couple of questions. The government has been paying literally, to IMF, to the World Bank, to China. Because every other month, government is literally paying out debt. So how do you explain that? And then secondly, you have literally been So can I ask of your motivation of doing this at this time? And then thirdly, what you're essentially calling for is for a sovereign not to repay debt.
Sorry, what?
Is for Kenya, the government, to stop meeting its debt obligations. That is pretty serious if that's what you're demanding.
Yes. Thank you, David. I want to go to this slide for your first question. The government has been repaying debt. The government has been paying back legitimate debt. That's what I will say. That debt is captured here. The external debt payments are here. The 5.6, you have 1 trillion and interest of that. So our total external debt payments have been 1.7. So World Bank, IMF, if they have funded any project in development, appropriations, it is here. It is here. What we are saying, okay, is that above what is approved by Parliament, there is a 1.8 trillion external debt not approved by Parliament. So we don't know what that debt is. If that debt is World Bank or IMF, then let them show us. Because any debt must go towards a project. 2 trillion is the external debt approved for projects. Anything outside of that has not been approved for any project. So let them show us what it was funding, because that is outside our laws. Completely outside of our laws. Are we clear, David? Now, what is my motivation? As I said, I commissioned this study late last year. And this study was not in tandem with whether I'm blocked from the ballot or not. I had commissioned this long before. In fact, I was going to launch this as part of my manifesto to say Kenya has no debt. Absolutely no debt to pay anybody. We have a credit. And on the basis of that, we have enough money. We don't even need to borrow to finance our obligations. That's to finance whatever I was rolling out as my manifesto. So it was my motive to understand, as any presidential candidate should understand, what are the current affairs? What is the current situation of your economy? If anybody was to just do a little homework, if you're serious about getting the job of presidency, you would do this homework. What is this debt? What do we owe? This is the biggest bond. You're told 65% of all the collections are going to debt. And yet you do not ask yourself, what is this debt? I did. Ask myself, what is this debt? What are we paying for? So I chose to invest in very good professionals to go out and find out. To go and find out. So that was my motive. I wanted to know where our revenue is going. And we have found it. That is actually zero. We don't owe any money. There's a heist here. There's a heist. Okay? Any other question? Yes?
Yeah, I'm Kennedy from Voice of America.
Yes, Kennedy.
I want to raise two questions here. One is about this is a government that at one point has supported the section of Kenyan media. You played a key role in setting up.
Yes.
What you're presenting, is there a possibility that perhaps will be signaling falling out with President Kenyatta? Number two, of course, any amendments done to the PFM Act involves members of parliament, and today in Kenya there is what we refer to as the involvement of the members of the public who present their views. What will then tell Kenyans about the kind of members of parliament in the amendment that you just shown here? Do you see collusion in terms of the key stakeholders who are supposed to be presenting such kind of amendments? Because in a parliament of 290 members from 290 constituencies and other nominated, there should be a possibility that definitely there are people who raise some resistance towards such amendments. And then perhaps lastly, at some point you'll be interacting with the section of the leadership when you wanted to vie for the presidency. I don't know what happened because they had been association with you, Deputy President, but we're no longer seeing the Kenyan media interacting at such kind of level. Will you perhaps also tell us in terms of what you want the message out there to be, because this is a colossal amount of money.
Yes. Kennedy, very good questions. Yes, I was part of helping and assisting the Jubilee government to come to power, 2012, 2013. In fact, I started from 2010. These, both of them, both the president and the deputy, good friends. We parted ways, and I've been very public about this, because of this wanton expenditure, wanton clamor for debt. And it started from SGR, thereafter Eurobond. We parted ways. That long ago, not recent, that long ago. And if you recall my history, in 2017, I was supporting Raila Amolo Odinga. So we had parted a long time ago. And I have been consistent on that path, scrutinizing the economic situation that has been created by the Jubilee government. This election, we have helped brand as the economic revolution election. It is about our economy. And I have sought to interrogate the economy, to understand it, clearly. And in line with that, because you ask a very interesting question about the way forward, they are attempting to block me. Yes. I think it's open for everybody. There's a back and forth about that. But I don't want to comment too much about that. Let me say, if for any reason we are not on the ballot, let me be very clear. I have been clear on my public stages, and I'll be clear here today. This 10 trillion heist is what I would like to liken as a virus. Coronavirus. It started in 2014. Jubilee was then called UHURU. UHURU became Jubilee in 2017. Corona became COVID-19. From COVID-19, we heard of two strands. One was called Omicron, the other was called Delta. Omicron and Delta. What we are faced with today as so-called choices are Omicron and Delta. Azimio, Kenya Kwanza. It's the same virus. If anybody believes that virus is going to cure anything, it's up to you. I call it a virus, and I say it must be exterminated. We must vaccinate against it and remove it from our midst. And this is the beginning. This is the beginning. Any other question? Kennedy, are you happy with that?
This is Edwin Austin from KPC.
Where's David?
Edwin Austin.
Edwin, where are you? Oh, Edwin. Yeah, I can see you now.
I have two questions for you.
Yes, Edwin.
From what you presented, one word spells across the whole statistics, and that word is corruption. My question to you is this: do you have a silver bullet for corruption? And secondly, if all does not go to plan, the second question is this: if all does not go to plan and you do not find yourself on the ticket come the August 9th, will you be open to serving the administration of the next president, regardless of who they are? Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Let me answer your first question. I think corruption is an understatement of what I have shown here. This is a heist. It's grand theft. Corruption is too small a word. This is of international proportions. And I believe what I've articulated here probably is something that is in very many places in our African continent. This is happening and being replicated in very many developing countries. So we are opening up Pandora's box. My pancreas for this so-called grand theft are what we are doing today, because our constitution covers everything. It is accountability. Being public and people understanding the economy and holding officials to account is the greatest thing. So one of the silver bullets of our manifesto was that we are going to make sure that everything is available on public platforms through IT. And all interactions with government are electronic. So a policeman cannot give you a ticket huku nje. Yeah? There is a process electronically through IT. Because IT, like the published websites of CBK and the published Appropriations Act on the platforms of Ministry of Finance, is where we got all this source material. So IT is the way to go. It's the better scrutiny for accounting our public money and the processes, interrogating the processes. So we seek to do a lot of civic education on Kenyans to understand their counties, their constituencies, their wards, money, and how bribery, even of them, is a plague they are giving generations to come. And we are better than that. We Kenyans, we Africans are better than that. We must start holding each other to a higher moral standard. We are. It is in our culture, it is in our ways. These shortcuts normally come because you have a percolation from the top. The top percolates a methodology, an ethic, a culture. If the top stopped, everything else stops. In the previous regime, you never heard of such grand theft. Never. Because it could not be attributed to the top echelons of power. So we must start holding, and the Constitution showed you here, the presidential warrants. Hold the president accountable. I'm not being personal to Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. But he is holding 2 books. He signs warrants for 2 books. One he has signed, called Development Appropriation. And he has signed in Development Appropriation 2 trillion. Then in Recurrent Appropriations Act, at the same time, he signed repayments of those loans to 5.6. How does he do that? More than he has signed for us taking loans. He is accountable. And that is the constitution of this country. It's not personal. These are the instruments. So all I need to do, and people need to do, is be educated like I'm trying to do today. When you know this, it holds a president accountable to an officer in every single ministry. Information sets you free. Information brings accountability. Okay? Now, you asked me a second question. I don't know. I believe I'm a vaccine. How do I go and join a virus? I don't see it. I don't see it. You have to convince me, but I don't see it. Yes? You know, there are those who say that when you don't vote, when you create a gap, others are able to rig. It's actually untrue. I remember we were part of the boycott of the second election in 2017. We campaigned for it. And the lack of voters created an illegitimacy of the Jubilee regime. That illegitimacy is what led to handshake, because it was illegitimate at the ballot of October 26th. Show your protest. Even non-participation in an election is a voice. I think I've answered you, Ikram. Yes.
My name is Mr. J. M. Kakonga. I am an accountant and a football coach from the UK, basically. I arrived here a week ago because I'm very concerned by many issues that are affecting Wanjigi. I have seen so many politicians promise so many things, and I haven't really heard some of the things that really are concerning Wanjigi being spoken by many politicians. Therefore, I made this journey to share what I have with the politicians and leaders like you and Wanjigos themselves. So I stand here today as a representative of Wanjigi. I left this country in 1994 as a youth, and I keep coming here back, and now I'm back here. Now I'm no longer a youth, but I'm still a fighter for Wanjigi, and I have been. But allow me to ask my question last after addressing my issues.
Go ahead, Joshua.
First I want to talk about my...
Please be brief, eh? Okay. Very brief.
So more is about... I'll try and be brief. The thing is about public wage bill. I'll start by that. The public wage bill in Kenya is very high, and it consumes 52% of the revenue collected by KRA. And the civil servant workforce in Kenya is 800,000 people, and the economy of Kenya is 36 times less than that of the UK.
Joshua, thank you. Thank you for your short speech. Let me just make a comment on something you said about 52% of revenue going to government wages. The same government said 65% is going to debt in this budget year. So if you count that 52 plus 65, means on their recurrent appropriations, they overspent on wages and debt repayment of 17%. That's 117 if you add them. Now, so 117, where did they get it from? So these are the things we're asking. Because you have no approval to borrow that 117, so what are these figures? So this is the question we keep asking, that don't trust too much what you are seeing. If you interrogate them, you get very big question marks. Now, what we are beginning today is a part of bringing WANJIGI closer to the conversation, because of my profile, closer to the conversation of interrogation of everything a government does. We will not shy away. And if we are prepared to say that there's been a heist of 10 trillion, 9.7 trillion has been a heist, I think you understand I'm making a very big statement here. And that we are not going to pay any debt. And anybody who thinks believes we owe them, let them come and show us what project they funded, and we'll ask them to show us where it is in our appropriations which have been passed by the budgets over the last 8 years. And if it is not there, it is not WANJIGI's concern. That is the law and the Constitution. If we remove the debt burden, as I'm saying, and put in the credit, you are changing the conversation for Kenyans completely. Because you're saying with our revenue, and especially with the credit, which will be a huge stimulus of 1.2 trillion, every Kenyan here has capacity now to grow. These banks who are loaning government will be looking for all of us to start a business, to do something. The government now can actually focus on government projects that are going to be a stimulus to each and every one of our lives. And we will hold them to account because we have more and more knowledge. We are trying to simplify these big things that they talk about in Parliament. They are not big things. It's like our own household. A budget is like how you also manage your own household affairs. If you want to extend the house kidogo, if you want to build a bigger pen for the cuckoo, that is called development. If you are paying for food on the table, that is called recurrent. You see, these are simple things in our homes. So we want to start by saying we are going to keep holding, because it is very clear that our parliaments and the opposition have not been holding the government to account. We are now saying the conversation has changed. This is economic revolution time, and it is a total change to the way we've been doing things. Any other question? Yes. Oh. Yes, oh sorry, there's somebody at the back. Yes, my dear. Thank you. Beverly was your name, yes? Beverly, let me assure you, had there been a presidential nomination race in ODM, and I had secured that ticket, I would be speaking louder than ever. Louder than ever, because this is reality. ODM has not been in government. I think they've had friendship with the government, but they've not been in government. Okay? So I would be speaking louder than ever. I've been speaking, and I was a part of a lot of what you saw as exposed in 2017. From Eurobond to NYS, to a lot of those things were right at the center. The second is, how do we keep this alive because of threats? I think, personally, there's nothing I have not seen. I've been raided in my house, raided in my office, been raided on the streets. We have seen this intimidation, and I want you to understand that the president, even Davis is here, he was in my school, St. Mary's. The president was my schoolmate from primary school. He was 2 classes ahead of me, but he was my schoolmate from all of primary to all of secondary. He is a friend from a long time ago, and I'm prepared to stand here and even criticize his regime because it's not personal. These things take a Jimmy to do. Outsiders may be afraid. I've been an insider. It takes a Jimmy to do, and I'm doing it for Wanjiko, because there's nothing better, there's nothing more fulfilling than doing for others, not yourself, not making yourself the focus. So I have removed myself from being the focus. This is not about me. It's not about me. I earlier answered the question of bitterness. I said I commissioned this audit long before they blocked me, or are trying to block me. And I want to assure you, I'm not a bitter person. You know, people think others are. I'm not a bitter person. Why would I be bitter? You know, there was a time when the law could restrict people. During the time of multipartyism, you only had one party. And one party, once it said its candidate, that was it. Now the laws have allowed not only multipartyism, but our constitution is so clear about the length and breadth of participation in an election that we are not fighting against the law. We are fighting people who are trying to operate outside of the law. I'm not bitter. This is part of the process of greater democratization. And we are going to push these barriers. We are not bitter. We are, in fact, very excited of the challenges. Have I answered your question? Thank you, Beverly. Next. Yes, sorry. Derry, yes.
So, first of all, I don't think even I am in a position to really appreciate what it does. Of course, discussions and these numbers have been thrown out there, and I mean, there's clear, ignoring of the Constitution, it's clear ignoring of some of our laws. So I'm just thinking in terms of next steps. Obviously, I expect somebody to run with this to one of the courts to declare some of the laws that have been passed which are clearly not in harmony with the Constitution and constitutional. I'm just wondering, from a capital markets perspective, ignore the capital markets, in terms of statistics, what do we actually know that is actually correct? Because if some of the numbers we see here might not be, some of the data is not real. For example, what does that mean for the statistical collection? Do we need to interrogate that as well?
Thank you. Thank you, Derry. Very good question. Yes, these figures are mind-boggling. I felt the same way when the experts came back to me. And I'll tell you that it takes a while to process. And you're right. Maybe some of what the government has brought out is inaccurate. So is that not a fraud? Because these are supposed to be exact figures. It's Wanjiko's money. Supposed to be exact figures. And you are supposed to follow the law. And remember I said the cornerstone of fraud is concealment. So is that part of concealment? Giving us 10,000 figures which are fake. What we know is that as of April 2022, this year, on the website of CBK, you can go, the debt is 8.47 trillion. As per the books that have gone to Parliament, we, in our recurrent repayments, have paid 5.6. You take the difference between 5.6 and 8.4, you have 2.88. That is what they should be showing is our debt. Forget about what is legal and what is not. So even the statement at Central Bank, are you saying your bank gives you fake statements? That's what you're saying. Right. So your guess is as good as mine.
Jimmy,
Yes.
my name is Tim Ichungwa.
Hi, Tim.
I don't know if I'm the only one that is astounded. I'm truly astounded. I'm not even meaning to ask any question, but I must congratulate you actually for stepping up.
Thank you.
I think it's an act of amazing courage,
Thank you.
which I think the country needs right now. But the other thing that I worry, Jim, apart from taking the burden of truth, don't you also worry that you have the burden of, the impact of second-order consequences? Won't this render government paper worthless? Won't this
Correct.
make our financial markets, which are already almost dead, even worse than dead? What do you think this might mean for us as a country?
Thank you. This is a balloon. It's correct. But do we live in this fakeness or do we deal with reality? I think we must deal in the truth and reality and deal with the consequences. What you're talking about are consequences. So let us deal with them. Because in consequences, there's somebody who must pay for those consequences. There's somebody who has created that balloon. Yes, we risk a huge collapse. I fully agree. But would you rather I keep quiet and say, let us live in this fake bubble and continue seeing WANJIGI paying every day, increasing from 63% to 73%? When do you want us to speak? Even the US with the mortgage crisis, it faced secondary mortgage crisis. It faced the truth and dealt with it. And they accepted one thing at the end of it, that they were too big to fail. There were institutions and banks that were too big to fail, that had operated contrary to the law and had created a balloon. We have a balloon here. Let's deal with it and its consequences. Because then we are saving the generations to come. Yes. I think I have answered your latter question when I said virus. I'm very clear about a virus. We have a continuity, people attempting to continue a virus. That is what a summation of the 3 are. But let me address President Uhuru Kenyatta. His legacy is a complete failure. You have impoverished more Kenyans than you have found, and you seek to impoverish more ahead by creating a balloon of debt that does not exist. The presidential warrants hold you accountable. You are accountable as per the Constitution of this country, and we shall hold you accountable as per the Constitution of this country. As anybody who seeks to enter that office must know you are accountable when you take the oath of office. There's no exception. There's nothing like, oh, we must respect the institution of an outgoing president. Don't do I don't know what. Tuko hapa na Zuma. Isn't he in a jail? You're seeing in the UK, mature democracy, that Boris Johnson, on ethics, that question his own credibility and thus demean the office, resigns. That is where we should be. Here, I am claiming, not even me, the experts, I'm not even asking for another audit. The experts have audited your books and found that during your period, 9.7 trillion has gone. That is 8 years of your regime. You are accountable as per the laws. Have I answered? Thank you. Yes.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm Hugo Clifton, I'm a lawyer. Told to say that I was in KU.
Karibu huko.
So, in general, only 1 minute. I have only one question. We have seen the repercussions of what the amendment to Section 15 of the Public Management Act has done.
Yes.
And I can say from my analysis, calculation, to steal from us
Yes.
by Parliament
Yes.
and by the executive.
Yes.
In a manner that violates Section 10 on national governance
Yes.
principles and Article 206, which you highlighted up there.
Yes.
The recourse, even if elected to President Putin, you can't revise that provision. Of course, it's a provision that's being used to steal from the public without accountability. Because if it is not in any fund, we can't know how it is spent, especially when we pay suppliers directly from the loan. So, are we going to court to petition and declare Section 15 constitutional, or we are discussing this here and leaving it at this juncture?
Thank you, Oko. Very good questions and very good articulation of law. Give me a clap. Now, let me say this, that we have a part 2 to this discussion. This is part 1. Part 1 is the problem statement. We are showing the heist. We have shown you how it was done in law. Okay? Part 2 are going to be now the actions. Each and every action we intend to take. Because also in part 2, maybe you should be asking me, do we know where it has gone? Do we know where it has gone? So I'm hoping you can ask me that question when I come to part 2. Okay? But I can assure you, and I'm hoping you'll be one of those that initiate it. You should go very quickly to court, right? To stop the implementation and the expansion of that clause. You're ready. I'm hoping that this will be a rallying call for right-minded citizens, or you lobby to LSK to go and make sure that it is expunged in our courts because it's unconstitutional. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is T.G. Mshira. I am a candidate. I'm a candidate for Okra constituency, that is the Black County. First is to thank the chief for the good presentation, although very annoying. Because I've always imagined that my children, my grandchildren, will be paying the trillions of money. But I'm glad that this is not the case. And therefore, Chief, the Wakili preempted what I wanted to say. That I'm the first person who will be going to court.
There you go.
Over this issue. Not to find out where the money is first, but to stop the Republic illegal.
There you go.
Because it's illegal.
It's illegal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just two more questions, please. Two more questions. So,
I think at the back there. Ah, you have somebody. Go ahead, Steve. It's up to you.
two critical questions.
At least one lady.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Abdullahi. I'm also a lawyer. My question is, first of all, before my question, I'd like to commend this fantastic job you're doing.
Thank you.
Enlighten us and open our eyes.
Thank you.
To my question, we're hoping that you return
Thank you.
to the rest so that we give you. But in case, God forbid, you're not, of the people that are there, who will you encourage us to?
You know, I stood on a, let me be more clear, because you don't understand when I tell you virus. If you remember my platform, I used to sing Fagia Wote. And I did so for a reason. Okay? Because here you can even see parliament. Correct? They passed these things. They passed repayments of more than the loans they've passed to be utilized. Okay? So they're either incompetent or they're in collusion. Right? My view is very clear. Fagia Wote. And I don't change. Fagia Wote. Yes.
When you look at these numbers, I think any Kenyan who is concerned about this country should not only be shocked, but you should be shocked very much. It looks like the whole has been dug deeper and deeper. So now we are heading into a transition in August, election 2024, 9th August. We are going public power. One of these candidates have been voted. But now as a nation, where is the turnaround? How do we get out of this deep hole? Because then you've shown us how deep it is. It's extremely deep. We are all inside. Where is the turnaround? How do we turn around from this? Whoever takes this over, how do we turn around? What's the medicine?
I'll tell you. The first thing is that Kenyans between now and the 9th must hold anybody who wants public office to commit that this debt is not payable and that they will not honor any debt that is unconstitutional. That is number one. Anybody who wants public office, whether you're an MP, whether you're a senator, whether you're a governor, whether you are seeking presidential, you must commit in the next few days that you will not pay any debt. There is no debt owing. Take it that this is a proper audit. A proper audit. It is an accurate, not audit, a proper investigation, forensic investigation into a debt. And that this forensic investigation has accurate figures. These are accurate figures. We owe nothing. So commit, you will not pay any debt. That should be a rallying call across the political divide the next 2 weeks. And anybody who does not commit that, fagia. If nobody commits, why are you committing your vote to them? Why are you turning up on election day? Because when you turn up on election day, you are telling them, continue the burden to Wanjiko. Second, God willing, some of us are on the budget, on the ballot. We are very clear. We will not pay. We do not owe you, we will not pay. If you feel we do, show us what you have funded. I think, Gerald, that answers. Asanteni sana. Thank you all very much. We'll see you for part 2. Thank you very much.